names and addresses. What font are you going to use? What size of font you're going to use? And you can have that as a high-level general requirement. Say, all input, this entire application will use Times Roman, size 12, unless otherwise indicated by a subsequent requirement, and that's fine. That's testable. You look for everything that says, hey, unless it says something different, it's Times Roman, size 12. Testable, quantifiable. Okay? That's how every requirement has to be. Because now, those requirements, as a software engineer, you hand that generally to another software engineer who now does the design. Okay? That particular individual then decides, oh, they got to do 5 things. What's the best way to do this? That's the how. Requirements never tell you the how. Requirements are 100% the what, always. The client does not have a dog in the hunt when it talks about how you do your job. So if you want to do a pull down, if you want to do a menu pop up, if you want them to type in their selection, like a green screen terminal back in the 70s, and you got good reason to do whatever that's 100% your prerogative. Okay, so the design person decides that. As long as they stick with the requirements that it supports those 5 things, and each of those 5 things meet the requirements for the details that we just talked about. Okay? So, how do you tie that together? That's where my requirements traceability matrix comes in. If you have requirement 1.0, or whatever numbering scheme you want to use, you should have a design element D1.0 or something equivalent. I always use R for requirements, D for design, T for test procedures, R for test reports, C for code, and then the same number. So I can pull a thread if I say, hey, I've got an issue with this code module, and code is 2.3.5. I can go to report 2.3.5 and see what happened. I can go to Tango 2.3.5 and see what the test procedure is. I can go to Delta 2.3.5 and see what the design was. Does the code match the design? Then I can go to R 2.3.5 and see what the actual requirement was. Did the software engineer miss the requirement? Or did the coder get it wrong? Okay? You don't know, but that's the investigation that has to occur. If you have more than one test report against a test procedure, I use letters for that. So the first one would be 2.3.5, the report, but the second one would be 2.3.5 alpha. Third one would be 2.3.5 Bravo. Because if you're retesting the same code following the same test procedure, then you're going to want to have that history of tests to see what happened. Okay? So that's how you get the requirements traceability. And we're going to be talking about requirements traceability every week. That's how important it is. So next week, when I talk about test procedures, I'm going to review the same thing that I'm talking about now when it comes to requirements traceability from requirement now through the test procedure, and then eventually through the code. Now, somebody might ask, why isn't it design, then code, and then test procedure? Great question. And the reason being is the designer is the best person to be figuring out what the test procedure should be to test their design. So when they're doing their design for a particular requirement, in parallel not later, not a month later, not 3 days later when they've forgotten what the heck they're doing. In parallel with that design, they should be sketching out how they're going to test that design. So test procedures and test designs are done in parallel. Okay, that's my snippet of software engineering lecture. Questions? I have one. Oh, and by the way, did that answer your question about requirements?
Yes, that did. Thank you very much.
Okay. All right. Open for questions now. Can you tell us which teams have had their project proposals approved? I wish I could. The problem is I use a hotspot on my phone. How about if you give me a little bit of time, and sometime tonight I will go through and I'll put together. I mean, it's not an embarrassment to anybody, so it's not like I'm throwing anybody under the bus. I'll put a little email together for all the teams to see that says, here's the project, their titles, and the ones that are approved, and next to it I'll put down the when they've scheduled already for their client meeting, so nobody else walks on that. And that way everybody will know, where we stand. Is that okay with everybody? Yes, sir. Yeah, that's good. Okay, yeah, I'll do that because I've got to hang up the phone, get on the hotspot, so I can. I live in a very secluded part of the country, so the squirrels don't even like coming out here. It's so secluded. So I'll jump on the computer and then I'll update everybody with where we are. All right. All right. Any other questions?
I did, sir. Could you explain again that matrix? Is that... Yeah, I didn't fully understand what that was.
You mean the requirements traceability matrix?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. All right. It's a way for you to associate however you want to do it. In my example, I told you the numbering scheme that I use. I don't care what numbering scheme or lettering scheme or how you do it. Okay. But it's a way to associate a requirement to the design of that requirement to the test procedure that's going to be used to test the design, to the code that's written that implements the design that's going to be tested by that test procedure that was defined along with the design. And the test is going to generate the test report that says how that code module did. So it is a method, I call it the requirements traceability matrix because most people implement it using an Excel spreadsheet.
I see, yeah, okay, that makes more sense.
They have the requirements down the left-hand side, and across the columns are the requirements, the requirements number, the design number, the test procedure number, the code number, and the test report number. So it looks like a matrix.
I see. Thank you. That clarified it.
No problem. No problem. Good questions. Anything else? All right. I'm going to let everybody get back to work. I will do what was asked of me. And if anybody has any questions, don't wait until your weekly meetings and don't wait until these instructor-based meetings if you have a question. You don't have time to wait a week to get an answer. Shoot me a text and say, hey, I have a question for you. And then, if it needs a long-winded conversation, I'll tell you, hey, when can we talk? Generally, it doesn't. I can answer it via text. But don't wait. Don't think you're bothering me, okay? That's what I'm getting paid for, all right? So you guys need to be successful here. So you guys do your part, I'll do my part. All right?
Great. Thank you so much.
Good. All right. Everybody have a good night.
You have a great night.